Welcome, Voyagers! In this episode, Frank and I are chatting about recent lessons we learned around spiritual discernment, our show's tenets, our upcoming documentary, and listening to your sacral no. I'm Lauren Leon.
And I'm signing up to CrossFit.
We are a married couple learning how to develop our own intuition, and this is episode 66 of Clairvoyaging. Wayfeather Media presents Clairvoyaging.
Word.
Oh, word to your mother.
I hit the button at the wrong time and it cut off, but let's go with it. Word.
Is it going to just sound like erd?
Yeah, it's going to sound like erd.
I filled it in for you. It's okay.
Thanks.
Hi, pals.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot. We got some new updates.
You have been giving me little tidbits here and there through the week, and it's been quite fun.
You know what? We got some new Patreon members. What? Here it comes.
My buttons are ready.
Jenica.
Keep going.
Christine. Hannah. Georgia.
What?
Oh, welcome, friends.
Guys.
Holy cow.
Are you for serious?
Yeah.
What a nice time.
I know. It's great.
Welcome to the party, friends.
Yeah. You guys, welcome. Also, we have a few listener episodes coming out soon on Patreon. We have so much fun talking to our listeners about their spiritual awakenings and their gifts opening up. Their journeys are incredible. Our listener stories are just amazing. You guys are amazing.
When we were first like, oh, let's do listener stories, I was like, oh, we'll probably get some like pretty basic stuff. There's not been one basic thing.
No.
And not to dissuade the basics out there from coming and talking to us.
You know what's funny? Everyone assumes that their story is basic.
Everyone has assumed that their story is basic.
I want to say, I'm going to shout out Seth because his episode is coming out soon. And he was like, I don't know, maybe it's not that interesting. And
it was.
The guy has an incredible story. So
worthy of its own full episode.
Yeah. So anyway, if you want access to all of the goods, it's just $4 a month to join. And this is the part where I repeat that it's $4 per month. And Frank says,
that's so cheap.
So, also, we got some coffees from Natalie.
Coffees from Natalie.
Thank you, Natalie.
What's all the support about? What's happening?
We've also gotten some like really nice comments on Spotify.
Comments on Spotify. Guys. Gosh, you're really making us feel special.
Like text messages. And I want to just remind you that we have this feature on our platforms. It says send us a text, which we receive. We receive, and it says you got fan mail.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there's just not an option for us to reply.
It's a one-way radio.
We don't know who it's from. It just says your city. And, I don't want to take away that option because I think it's really cool.
It's fun.
I just want to say, you're not going to get a reply, unfortunately, because there's no option to do that.
Yeah, so if you've sent us a text, we don't hate you. We're not ghosting you. I just don't know. I don't know what to do.
If you wrote us a text message, thank you. And we love you.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it.
And we see you.
And we see you. Okay, guys, I have a big announcement. Not me. We.
Oh, go ahead and take the credit.
We have a big announcement. Are you ready? We now have a fundraising campaign going for our documentary.
Up and running.
And it comes with rewards.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that part.
Yeah. We're raising funds so that we can start working with the incredible Sarah Reeves and her team at Metaphysical You in Austin, Texas. By the way, if you haven't heard our episode with Sarah, go listen to episode 12. Our fundraising goal is currently $15,000 so that we can pay crew, cover travel, equipment fees.
Wait, can I say something?
Etc. Yes.
That's not so cheap.
It's not, but that's why we got a fundraise.
It's worth it. And honestly, this is a smaller budget than what we've worked with in the past. So I think we're doing okay here.
Yeah. And also, because we are sponsored by a 501c3 called Fractured Atlas, any donation is tax deductible. And the rewards start at just $10.
You know, I'd like to.
That is so cheap. You say that.
That's so a little bit more expensive than our Patreon, but still cheap. I want to give a shout out to our friend Adrian for telling us about Fractured Atlas because that's a really cool thing. Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah.
Adrian was the person we traveled around Duluth with. I don't remember what episode that was, but
it was our spooky Halloween episode. So if you look up Halloween special, if you heard that one, Adrian is our kind of co-host. She's our adventurer in that episode.
Yeah.
We want to have her back on to just have a chat, have a spiritual chat.
Yeah.
Because she is amazing. So the link for our fundraising campaign. The link for our fundraising campaign will be in the show notes, but you can also head over to clairvoyaging.com/support and click that top link to donate to our documentary and see more about it.
No pressure.
Also, we already got a few donations because I announced it through Threads and on our Patreon.
We did.
So thank you to Wish, our first supporter, and also to Anonymous.
Thanks. Wow, everyone's probably so sick of me screaming.
Oh my God.
I might have to cut some of that out.
This is a really hyped up intro.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Those are all the updates. It was a lot. Thank you for sticking with me while I told you all of these things and thanked all of our pals.
And you know, thanks to me for being maybe the best one-man peanut gallery.
You're quite the hype man.
Yikes.
So, okay, Frank, let's talk about it for a second.
Here, hold on to this selenite tower for a moment.
Frank, before the episode, Frank grabbed a selenite crystal just to clear your energy.
You know, we've been told selenite is the what is it? It's the vacuum filter of emotions.
So, if you heard our last episode 65, which was when a psychic reading doesn't resonate, then you'll know what we're referring to. If you didn't listen to that, it's just a 10-minute episode. It kind of gets you caught up a little bit.
Without actually hearing the interview, because that's going to the trash can.
Yeah. So we had a lot of discussion. Essentially what happened was we had a guest who is a sort of a spiritual business coach. And it was a big lesson. I was following this person and I went to their videos and their posts and I kind of went back and forth on like, would this person be a good guest? Something told me no. So this is a huge lesson in following my intuition and listening the first time when I hear that sacral no. And the sacral no is something that we learned through human design, but that's something in your gut that says, this isn't the right thing. And something popped up that told me, oh, maybe it would be good. Maybe we'd learn something about money mindset or manifesting or something. But ultimately, it ended up being an interview that made us afterwards feel really uncomfortable, really, really pissed off Frank. It like activated all of our shadows. So this was a huge lesson.
Let me say, and that was, so the lesson is in not just the sacral no, but also in, you know, we've always talked about on the show, psychics who don't necessarily have your best intentions in mind, right? And how to spot them and recognize them. And then here we are having a whole show about that and kind of falling victim to that. Very charismatic people exist. And that's something to keep in mind. They can also be psychic.
Yeah.
And you know, if you've heard the last episode, sorry for going over this again, but I'm pretty sure that what happened was that our like shadow selves, which for a minute, maybe we talk about the shadow but our shadow selves were read and then used against us. Right. Particularly like in Lauren's inner child was brought up, and then my sense of value and how it's this entire last year and a half has been tied to my sense of how I tie my personal value to my earning, what I earn, or like my work or whatever. It's old shadow stuff. But then basically it was affirmed to me that, oh yeah, you should do that. And you are not living into your what you should be doing in your life. And that is weaponizing that shit.
Yeah.
And for me in particular, after we had a couple of rough days, what it's allowed me to do once I got over the hump of like, oh my God, like someone confirmed that the worst part of me really is the worst part of me and that I'm living wrong. What it's made me do is kind of double down on betting on myself in a very specific way. And we'll get into that later.
Yeah, really quick. I just want to give an outline of just what happened. We brought this person on our show. We had a lot of just kind of basic back and forth questions. How do you bring spirituality into growing wealth? How do you bring that into a boardroom or dealing with CEOs? How do you keep, how do you use your intuition, that kind of thing? And this person was like, well, also I'm psychic. So I just, read the person and I cut through the BS and all this stuff. So did you know that they were psychic before they came on the show? No. Yeah. We were just talking to like an empowerment person as far as we knew. I knew there was like a blend of intuition and like spirituality. Yeah. But not like there's no claim to I'm psychic on any of their platforms. Okay. So then that was the first like half an hour. And then at some point I said, okay, how would you give advice to someone with a limiting mindset or something like that? Just kind of making it general. And Frank was like, no, get personal, make it about you. And I'm like, okay, I have this idea to create a workshop. And I know that I'm feeling myself become a little bit smaller when I say that because I have a little, I struggle with self-doubt. And the immediate response was, okay, well, let me ask you this. What happens to your marriage when you step into who you truly want to be? And I was like, just what? What? I wasn't asking about, what do you mean? And I was staring at the interviewee just like, okay, where's this going? Yeah. Where's this going? Yeah. So when you're in this kind of position to be like how we are, we're open, we're vulnerable, we're willing to take advice and be flexible and like, sure, you're going to like coach me for a second, but it got really direct in a not so good way, just really fast, where I was like kind of sweating. And well, I sweat every interview, but that's more about me. And then they said, like, what happens, what is the little girl in you most afraid of that will happen with anybody that you love? And of course, like, I don't think my husband's going to leave me, but if you say like, what's the little girl in you the most afraid of, that is always going to be being left or being abandoned. Abandonment, yeah. That is the thing that I'm like, are you talking to the 3-year-old in me? So literally in like the blink of an eye, it went from how should I think about my upcoming coaching project to your husband's going to leave you. And yeah. Our heads were spinning a little bit. Yeah. And, so what Lauren is like talking about right now is in particular, because of the nature of the show, we're always putting ourselves in a position of learning, right? So we are allowing our interviewees to like, tell us how it is to a certain extent, at least from their perspective. Yeah. We like doing that because we are supposed to be here gathering information, right? But we haven't run into somebody who would take the advantage of that dynamic. Yeah. Just to use an example or like a comparison, Michelle Hollingbrooks was an incredible guest. If you haven't heard part 1 and 2 of her interview, she's incredible. I don't even want to incur her name in this episode because she's a saint, Saint Michelle. Truly. And like, she did a healing example with us. And she had me invite my inner child in front of me and imagine asking her to come join us in our family room and be with our family and be treated the way that like she wants to be nurtured and all that stuff. So I was crying during that.
Good cry.
But
there's challenge cry.
Yes.
There's like, oh yeah,
And
I need to face this cry. And then there's upset cry.
Yeah. Then there's like, I was asking about doing a workshop, not about like if my husband's going to like up and leave me. So really kind of just using that to their advantage and then focusing and honing in on Frank and how he needs to step into his masculine energy. And
this was one of those interviews, we haven't had one yet, where I literally couldn't say anything right. Every time I said something or defended my standpoint and said, I don't know if I like that in my own words without being confrontational, it was like, I was immediately shit on.
Yeah.
And it was so weird.
Yeah.
It was so weird because it was such a weird, confusing mix of some good advice and then like slamming me and then telling Lauren she needs to stop being so like minimizing herself, but at the same time in kind of an aggressive way that didn't feel good. Yeah. And like it didn't, I knew that during the interview, as soon as we got off the interview, I said, I hated that.
It's literally Frank's words where I hated that. And I said, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then, just had to sit with that for a few minutes and be like, how much of that was true?
So, not to harp on this anymore, but really the takeaway was a big lesson in trusting our instincts, our intuition, and not letting and acknowledging our shadows when they pop up, but saying like, those aren't in control of me, or those aren't necessarily who I am now.
Or really what was being presented to us is that our shadows are our true selves and that we are not in control of them whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
And that's like a horrible thing to be told.
Yeah. And the danger of that is someone who claims to be psychic telling you that they know better and using their underdeveloped ability to kind of get a little bit of control over you or basically say, oh yeah, well now I should coach you.
And let's be clear about what we mean by underdeveloped. We don't mean not a good psychic, very psychic, very intuitive, hitting on good things. When we say underdeveloped, what we mean is that bedside and that those ethics and how much of your own personal ego is brought into that reading. And it was clear that it was a ego first reading.
Yeah.
That person brought their worldview into this space. And want to know what's crazy about it? I'm going to say something right now.
What?
And it's not that controversial, especially these days, but billionaires should not exist. So this person is in my church and telling me that they are trying to encourage millionaires, that they could be billionaires, but they have limiting mindsets.
Yeah.
And like, how about if you just go suck a bag of trash for me, okay? Like, no, that should have been our first. And
yeah.
And like
Frank's like shaking over here, probably just from the comment of more money and someone making billions, and he's like, yeah, but we're creating a caste system now, and
yeah, and I was brought.
Shouldn't people not have that much money because it's a problem?
It was brought up. They used that against me, saying like, "Oh, you have an issue with money," and I used to hate money. People who had money too. I'm like, no. It's not the money. It's the systems. I at one point I said, yeah, okay, like it's not money. Money's a tool. We've learned that through the show. I'm talking about like predatory capitalism. And when, AOC said it best recently, billions are not earned, they're taken. And I firmly believe that to be true.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And sorry if we're getting too political for you, but legitimately, it's the mindset around that predatory capitalism. And if you're in the boardroom these days with people who admire people in even larger boardrooms, like the expectation for predatory capitalism is built into your organization. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I'm sure there's some Ben and Jerry's pretty great, but
Yeah.
like if you're wanting more money and you already have a lot of money, like you've got a problem, dude. Like you want to talk about shadows. If you're a CEO and you think you need more money after your multi-millions, you need to slow down. You have messed up. It's not about that. So to claim yourself to be like a spiritual guru in the boardrooms telling these people that they do need more money is absolutely unhinged. To be clear.
It's, it's just not, it's not really the kind of thing that we uplift on this show.
I mean, I want to
if you do like that, then great. It's just like, we wanted something that aligns with our values. And
yeah, I want to give Lauren, this is one of those situations where I want to make sure there is a division between Lauren and I. These are the views of myself. I don't like predatory capitalism, and neither does Lauren, but I'm the one that's a little more ragey about it. And
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to drag you into my rage.
No, I'm ragey about it too.
All right.
You're just louder about it.
I get loud when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's fine.
I was going to say one more thing. Oh, and I just want to bring up the point that, like, when I say underdeveloped, I'm talking about someone who most likely didn't take classes on like psychic development, intuitive development, learning those really basic things about ethics.
We did the clairvoyaging thing. We said, how'd you get started? And yeah, there was no mention of that at all.
No.
It was, I've always been this way.
Yeah.
And like, scary.
Okay. So yeah.
Real quick.
I had to deal with like my guilt of, I think I have that rejection sensitivity dysphoria or whatever it's called. It's kind of can go hand in hand with ADHD. And I think, the idea of being wrong or doing the wrong thing, I'm so afraid of rejection that I just tried to make it all okay. Like, I don't want to be I'm responsible for this guest and then ultimately how this guest made you feel and how this guest brought us in like this, friction, like turmoil. Do you actually feel this way? Because the psychic told me that you feel this way. That's just final for me. Final lesson. Intuition. You can just step into your mistake and it's okay.
But we're never here. So here's the thing now. And this is the guts of what I want to talk about on this episode is that we're not going to be able to filter everybody in the world. And I'm not talking about like on the show. I mean like in real life, right? And this is for the listeners too. We're going to run into people who are going to try and sell you the psychic version of a timeshare. And if you're susceptible to that, like Lauren and I have once purchased a timeshare and then immediately took it back.
We had to send a letter via fax to say we rescind.
We looked at each other and said, what have we done? Listen,
if you emotion based,
if you own a timeshare and you love it, then you're doing it correctly. But afterwards, we're like, wait, whoa, this is not. No, what are we doing? How did this happen? I think we can get sold.
Yeah,
I'm concerned about our ability to be sold.
I heard other people popping champagne. I was like, it's time for us to celebrate.
Frank, I really want them to pop the champagne for us.
We got to my mom's house and she's like, you did what? You did not buy the timeshare. So listen, it's not about stupidity. It's about putting yourself in not even putting yourself in the situations. It's not your fault. It's not our fault. But it really did make Lauren and I realize that in those moments, we don't have a lot of emotional tools, especially in this environment where we're talking to a psychic, right? Someone that we have a 65 episode history of trusting people with deep intuition. It puts us in a situation where we are very vulnerable to what we're told. So what do we do if we find ourselves in that situation again? What tools do we have to identify when we are being effed with? And your recommendation to me, which was really helpful, was to create my personal set of principles or standards, or what you call tenets, to remind myself of who I am and who I'm not.
Yeah, if you are like a person like we are, who, is very open-minded and willing to hear things out, is sometimes having to switch over to be in a defensive mode is uncomfortable and it feels confrontational. And sometimes I get too emotional or I feel too terrible before I turn that switch, before I flip that switch into like defense mode. And writing some things out, some principles or some tenets, or you can call them non-negotiables, is a really good way to give yourself that trigger. Like, oh, there's been a violation. I don't feel terrible yet, but there's been a clear violation. Like, let's strike one kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, you might know who you're dealing with. I created a set of tenets or non-negotiables for clairvoyaging as an entity, and that we are going to be following moving forward. And I'll go over them in a little bit, but I did want to mention one thing. Because we've talked about like shadow self and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I know we've mentioned it in the past, but I did a little bit of research just so I can talk about it more clearly. And I want to mention what that is. In your life, when you're growing up or going through your, formative years, there are times when either your environment or your own psyche makes it so that this is a Jungian concept. I believe he coined shadow. Your environment or your psyche, your own psyche, has pushed certain aspects or elements of yourself into your subconscious. I'm going to screw this up, but it's fine. Just hear me out.
You're doing a great job.
Simple version. So what it is you have these elements that you're trying to repress, right? Of yourself, when really you're supposed to acknowledge those things that you've been told aren't right, or that you've told yourself aren't right, and then accept them to a certain extent and reintegrate them in a way that is non-destructive, right? So for example, you could say, so I for a long time was like, oh, like I'll never get anywhere with creativity, even though I saw the opposite all around me. People were getting places, like being in the arts and stuff, right? And like earning a living. But for some reason I told myself that that's not going to work for me, right? So I put that on the back burner, and I was living a duality. I was living a dual lifestyle, where I had a very corporate job that I hated during the day, as you all freaking know. I have said this way too much. And then at night, I was an artist by night, and I would let my freak flag fly, right? And at some point in the last few years, that became too hard to manage. And it was because literally I was working on my shadow self artistry in the shadows, like at nighttime, like after hours, right?
So wait, is the shadow in this case your belief that you'll never do anything bigger with your creativity?
It would have been the belief saying that this will never provide me with anything that
that fear of stepping out into that version of yourself.
Whatever I suppressed. So what I suppressed was the belief that I could ever make money doing art.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So that's considered a shadow.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I made a belief system. What I did was I suppressed my true authentic self, which is as an artist.
Right.
And I took on the mantle of, I have a corporate job. I am a corporate worker. I'm a cog in the machine. I have.
Yeah.
What are the cubicles?
What are those called?
Yeah.
Cubicles.
I let it go. So, and that becomes a lot, right? And the concept of the like shadow work is that you are working to reintegrate, right? So in my case, now I'm like, well, hold on. If all the hard work and all the like work ethic and stuff that I brought into just trying to make my fake mantle of a corporate worker work for me, like I can take all those lessons and bring it back to my suppressed artist self and pull that up again and let reintegrate, right? And I can be excited about it, like I am now. Here we are. I'm excited. I love art. Hey,
yeah.
It's me. And not to say it's an easy transition or anything, but that's what the concept is. So if you have somebody who's tapped into those repressed parts of you, things that people told you can't be or can't do, or those worst fears of you that you've also repressed and you're denying. I deny that, right? Even though it might be like a little bit true, or there might be some truth to it, or maybe it was true 10, 20 years ago, whatever that might be. So if someone could see that, your worst sense of yourself, and then use it against you, literally weaponize your own shadow against you. Oof, that is a slithery snake. That is a toxic individual.
Yeah. I want to say too, because we're talking about the shadow. I don't think it's a coincidence that this interview that we had that brought up all of our shit came during eclipse season. Like, I mean, high emotions, full moon, all that stuff, which I don't know why. I don't have the scientific, I don't know what the scientific explanation is for eclipses bringing up all of your shadow self and your traumas and dealing with your fears and all this stuff. But
I don't know.
It's just interesting that this came at that exact week.
It is. I mean, we've been flipping through TikTok and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's retrograde and
oh yeah,
retrograde and eclipse season, and like we're going to be working with your shadows and things are going to come up and you're going to feel uncomfortable.
I made a joke video on TikTok about it, but it's true.
It is true. It's very, I mean, whatever, regardless of if you subscribe to that stuff or not.
Yeah.
It happened. It happened here.
Yeah.
Which is, it's funny. It's funny. If you want like a very quick, loose scientific explanation for like why like the lunar shit affects you. Mm-hmm. I did see someone today who was like, who said, she was like, our bodies are made of like 80% water, right? You see what the moon does to the tides.
Right.
Why would you not have things come up too? So I wanted to talk about discernment. Like I was saying earlier, like when you're in a situation like this where you are open-minded, but you like don't have any evidence, we're talking about spiritual stuff and like being open to this stuff, right? Like we're not always asking for direct evidence, but when are you being taken advantage of? And side note, another thing that happened this weekend, which is very funny. I don't know how active you guys are on TikTok, but like the
oh yeah,
like alien disclosure stuff is just going off, right? Everyone's been talking about the like UAPs and drones and all that stuff lately, but there was a certain individual, I won't name names, I don't think it's her fault, but there was a certain individual flying around TikTok who was saying that this weekend was the big weekend where the like galactic people
Federation,
I don't know if it was the Federation, I don't know what.
I think she did say Federation.
Okay, well, we're galactic folks were going to be showing themselves. Literally, she was
via
saying
motherships,
the size of cities, visible to everyone, not just people like in tune with it. And yeah. So, Lauren, what'd you think when the aliens showed up? That was pretty cool, right?
Frank has gotten really into this side of TikTok and this side of
I think fascinated
discovery.
Is the correct term.
I can't, you guys, we did go outside and look around.
And we looked at the sky
each night and we said, what the hell?
We looked up and we said, hey,
nothing's happening. You said you were coming.
So let's I want to talk about discernment for a quick second. All right.
Oh, wait. But Frank's like, okay, if nothing happens this weekend, which I'm sure it probably won't, but when nothing happens this weekend, I'm going to go on an unfollow quest.
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
It's begun, yes.
Okay.
The unfollowing has begun.
Yeah.
Now,
it's too much sometimes.
Well, all I wanted to say was that, like, also the person that said that the motherships were coming, she was like, what did she say? She said that there was not any miscommunication, but that someone changed their mind, and that she's also susceptible to how the aliens will sometimes lie for certain purposes. And the thing I said to Lauren was, wait a minute. We're asking for help from people who lie. And what happened to like best and what?
Your highest good.
Highest and best or whatever, right? What happened to light? Oh, you're gonna lie to me just for a joke? So I was like, oh man,
those aliens are tricksters.
So my whole thing was this: like, there's a chance that, like, that's all real, but at what point are we just putting our blind faith into some, like, something that we have no evidential proof of, and I don't want us, especially on the show in any kind of way, to recreate any kind of a large part of the show is like getting away from traditional religious ideologies, which traditional religious ideologies put something between you and your ability to expand your own faith, right?
Yeah.
You need a church, you need a priest, and in this case, I need a channeler. Like, why?
Tell me what the aliens are saying,
and the aliens know best. Why is there always someone in the middle?
Yeah.
So this is discernment. This is where discernment comes in, and like, really, this is based on if we find ourselves in a situation where we are being too open. I'd love to hear stories. I want to hear more about everyone's religious faiths and their spirituality. I don't necessarily need to subscribe to it, but where do we come in as individuals? I'm talking about Lauren and I as hosts and you as listeners. And this is when I came up with the clairvoyaging tenets, our non-negotiables for how we are moving forward. And I'd like to read them real quick to you.
Yeah.
And
love to hear it.
Lauren, I'm going to read what I wrote. And then I'm probably going to put these on our website too.
Great.
And then I'd like you to comment.
Okay.
Or we can discuss some talking points, right? Okay.
Please tell me, tell us.
So the first tenet is sovereignty over obedience. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, do not let anybody tell you who you are. You are the master of your own journey.
Yeah.
And this obviously comes back to like our interview we had to throw away, right? Someone was telling us who we were and claimed to know us better than we knew ourselves. Even if someone does have the ability to read into the worst, darkest version of yourself, right? You still have free will.
Yeah.
If you don't want that, you don't have to be it in any kind of way.
Yeah. Speaking of sovereignty and that interview, the most empowering thing was realizing the choice that we could make, which was, we're not publishing that. And the minute that was the option, it was the clearest option, and it was also the most freeing, because it reminded me, this is our show. Like, there is something really empowering about, what are our values? It doesn't include this. So this is not going to be included. And I'm such a people pleaser that my fear was like, oh, they're going to be upset, or they'll maybe ask us at some point, like, what happened to that episode? Sorry, it didn't fit. It didn't align with our principles or the messaging that we're trying to have with our show.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have our principles laid out yet, because we
had a loose idea of like, does this feel right or not? Right.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now, in the moment, we'll know.
Yeah.
Number two, empowerment over dependency. Very similar, but a little different. And that reads as follows. Spiritual wisdom comes from within. Find the right balance between external validation and self-reliance.
Yeah.
We don't want to be in a situation where we constantly need affirmation of our own truths. But at the same time, we do like some validation, and you got to choose whatever works for you. But if you find yourself relinquishing your own self-reliance in terms of like, you need someone else to externally validate what you are going through, then you're probably not doing it right?
It's true. There is a point where, I mean, as spiritual people, you, our listeners, are most likely on a spiritual journey yourselves. And depending on where you are, you might not necessarily need to go to psychic or medium readings. Like, and that's not to say like, don't do it anymore. However, you might not feel that pull because so much of the intuition is already within you and the answers are already within you. I know that there comes a point where it's like, when you're kind of just floundering and you're like, I really want someone to tell me how I feel or validate how I feel or read me, like, because I don't know what's going on. Then once you start doing those deep dives, you don't require that as much. Like maybe there's like, you're using divination or you're kind of like, you're using meditation or whatever. That's all seeking validation from yourself, your higher self, or your spirit guides. Does that make sense?
Kind of, but like, even if you're completely leaning on because you can abuse divination, right?
Yeah.
You got to find the balance. So I pull tarot cards all the time, as you know, because I pull them for you too. But what the tarot card does is it leads to a deep discussion. I'm not literally reading the tarot descriptions and saying, oh, okay, cool. Like, and then basing my life off of that. It's like a Kickstarter to a conversation that leads to something that I may be not addressing or something that I hadn't thought of. And it is always amazing as long as you bring your own intuitive knowledge into it.
Yeah.
And that's where, but if someone is just straight up telling you how it is, then you are in for a world of hurt.
And you're depending on what they say as opposed to what you feel.
Yeah. Maybe we caught the last interviewee on a bad day, but if that was a good day, then I feel really bad for that person's clients because they are in a like a high risk situation where not only are they handing over their own personal power, they're also at risk of like being abused, to be honest.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Manipulated at the very least.
Which brings us to number 3.
Go on.
Do no harm. Do no harm. What do we mean by that? So all of us, all of our journeys look different and deserve respect. So when we are engaged in a discussion about spirituality, it's important for us to meet people where they are and encourage their own growth at their own pace. And not to tell them what's right or tell them what's wrong, but to push them along in a healthy, encouraging kind of way, right? You don't want to break people down.
Yeah.
So I feel bad about this. I might have talked about this in one of our earlier episodes, but when I was younger and I personally was trying to work my way out of the Catholic Church, which is not a comfortable thing to do. Ask anyone who's done it.
Yeah.
But I was also kind of like raging against my parents because they were so steeped in it, right? And I got to a point once I started doing my own growth and I stopped projecting onto them what I wanted. I'm going to say that again. I stopped projecting onto them what I wanted for myself. Then I was like, oh shit, like that's how they connect, right?
Yeah.
It's what they're comfortable with. And it's what brings them this deep sense of spirituality and peace. Who the hell am I to take that away from them?
Yeah.
Regardless if I agree with it or not. Now, my parents I'd say my parents have done a lot of work and they're way more open-minded too, but they still have that like foundation of the faith that they grew up with. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
In fact, there's might be even some things good with it. But my parents also display discernment in where they are like, they pick and choose what works for them.
Yeah.
They integrate it. And then there are some things that they've let go. The Catholic Church makes it easy to let some things go because they keep blowing it. That's all I'll say. But that's that discernment.
Yeah.
And that's also like releasing that gatekeeping that the church and traditional churches can do, but also the gatekeeping that weaponized psychics can do to you. You need them. No. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, we might have a listener here or there that has fallen victim to you have a curse. I am the only person who can remove it, or I can do a cleansing and it's only $700. Or the people who like, I kept seeing on Reddit, there's like stories of people who are like, I just went to a psychic and they told me that my husband is going to die in the next year and there's nothing I can do about it. And like just really damaging things that like now they can't sleep at night and all this stuff. That is so harmful. So yeah, obviously we'll never have a guest like that, but
former guest and friend of the show, Michael Mayo, has talked about how like there are certain things that don't come through in spirit, and they're called the 4Ds.
Oh,
yeah. Oh man, why did I put myself in a situation where I have to remember them? Death, destruction, divorce, and Donald Trump. I can't remember what the fourth one was, but like some things are not supposed to come, as far as mediumship goes, some things are not supposed to come through like that, right?
Yeah.
Spirit's never going to give you when by spirit, I mean like your ancestors, your spirit guides, they're not going to give you devastating news. And also with the future somewhat unwritten, that's just nothing's for sure.
Yeah.
Like we've had psychic readings where they hit on things that are true and the timing's always off. I always talk about how the joke of our existence is time and how time moves. The timing is going to be off.
Yeah.
So when someone, your husband's going to die? No shit. Everyone dies, man. But like, you're telling me next year, suck a bag of trash.
Oh no, it's a new Frank catchphrase.
I have a new, that is not one that I want to take off.
I'm putting it on your headstone.
Oh man. Okay, I'm fine with it.
His favorite quote, suck a bag of trash.
And you know what? I got to say something. Suck a bag of trash brings us to tenet number 4.
Okay.
The last tenet is take no shit. So do no harm, take no shit. You've heard the phrase.
Okay.
Okay, take no shit. Spiritual growth can present Spiritual growth can present challenges, but it's never aggressive. Okay? You trust your sacral response, the thing we were talking about earlier, that gut feeling that tells you whether or not something is right for you. If someone is challenging you in a way that feels negative or depleting of your own energy, they are projecting onto you. Do not accept it and see tenet number 1, which is sovereignty over obedience. You know what? Maybe number 5 is suck a bag of trash.
Yeah, that's the unofficial number 5.
The show's changed.
Man, our last guest really changed us.
But like legitimately, the entire thing breaks down to that, is that like there's a way to guard your growth while also not being susceptible to people's shitty takes. And I think Lauren and I just figured out how to work that out. And I'm hoping that if you found yourself in a position where you're also being victimized by people with supposed intuitive abilities, that's how to go about it. Is know when to cut it off and know when to say they're full of shit.
Yeah.
And growth mindset while being positive. I'm same thing. It doesn't even have to be intuitive, psychic, anything like that. I mean, look at, we talked about, we briefly mentioned, what was it called? You know, those like groupthink workshops where you're supposed to go there and like work on yourself, but then they end up yelling at you and you feel horrible about yourself. Landmark. Yeah. Stuff like that. I don't know how popular that is anymore, but like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea.
Like being put in a position where you are super uncomfortable and is not something that you have to do to grow. You don't have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like publicly humiliated to grow. You don't have to be humiliated to grow. You might be humiliated by like what you've thought about yourself in the past.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be like a shaming. And in fact, the best way to go about all of this is without shame, because that shame is going to like drive you into a place you don't want to go to. And shame essentially creates more shadows for you to work through down the line. You're just kicking the rock down the road.
Yeah. There were exercises that sounded like deeply devastating, and I'm sure healing, but to like access your
Are you talking about landmine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Landmine to access your darkest memories in a group setting and like maybe even be pushed to talk about them in front of other people. I don't think so. That's not for me.
No.
I was like, nah, I'm not doing that.
That's aggressive.
Yeah.
It's ego. It's maybe someone was treated that way and they are just like, hazing other people into doing the same thing. If you feel hazed, don't do it. Okay. So one more time, let me just go over them. Just the headlines here. Sovereignty. Number 1, sovereignty over obedience. Number 2, empowerment over dependency. Number 3, do no harm. 4, take no shit. And 5, suck a bag of trash.
That one's the silent one.
Yeah. God. Yeah.
So dumb. I think these will help us recognize what's going on if something's going astray.
Oh yeah. No, we're never going sideways again.
Yeah. So I feel like that sums up our big lessons. This is, we like to call these kind of episodes milestones. And I think this is a pretty important milestone for us. We got
it is a milestone. It might not be as like fun as the other ones.
But that's part of it.
Maybe,
right?
I just realized this is episode number 66. Maybe that's not an accident.
I know.
New levels, new devils. I've said it before. I'll say it again.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that a saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's not,
no,
I've got a new t-shirt to make.
I'm putting number 66 as an angel number.
Is it?
It can be.
Can it be?
Yeah. Or new
angles.
New angles, new angels.
No.
Yeah.
No, those are the same word.
No, new angles, new angels. It's just the E and the L are
the dyslexics are not big fans right now. Someone's gonna say new angles, new angles. Oh, they must work in construction.
No, I'm just keeping it high vibes.
Sure.
Okay, you guys, we love you.
Maybe some of the stuff we've talked about is old news to you. You've done this, you've done the work, but this is a new little bit. You'd think after 40-something years of life that we'd be better at handling the aggressive sales types. And here we are.
When you're not expecting it on your own podcast, like you're just not really ready for it. So
yeah,
now we're prepared.
Yeah.
This is our house and I must defend it.
Oh, wow.
Home Alone? Anyone?
Everyone.
It's not the season for it, but it's always the season for
Home Alone.
Also, I just want to say thank you. So, there were several people who reached out after listening to that little short episode that we had.
Yeah.
Just thank you, because it was tough. So thank you for saying anything that you said to us. It was really sweet.
Thank you for your support, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Love you.
Love you. Hearts and stars.
Peace.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Visit clairvoyaging.com for merchandise or to access free resources to help you on your spiritual journey. Subscribe to our Patreon for more content or join for free to chat with us. Clairvoyaging is a fiscally sponsored project of Fractured Atlas, a 501c3 charity. Make a tax-deductible donation to support our mission to foster understanding, respect, and curiosity for diverse spiritual belief systems. Clairvoyaging is a production of Wayfeather Media.